Welcome to Dementia Air, a content channel devoted solely to exploring topics related to dementia. Dementia Air is a production of Beyond Dementia Coalition, a not-for-profit 501c3 which seeks to reduce stigma and help all of us not only recognize but also accept, assist, and embrace people living with dementia as valued and beloved members of the community. See the person beyond the disease. Hello, everyone. With me today is Cloud Conrad, and Cloud is a dementia caregiver, trainer, mentor, educational program designer, and public speaker. And Cloud, you also had an affiliation with the International End-of-Life Doula Association.
Yes.
And I think it was a marketing capacity. And Cloud is also Director of Program Development for Beyond Dementia Coalition. And Clyde, you've also been a caregiver to your dad, Stuart, and
Yep.
your mom, Mary Ann. You definitely have a unique perspective as a caregiver, educator, trainer, so I'm hoping you can bring that to the discussion today, and I'm sure you will. But I thought maybe we could discuss a little bit about yourself and what's brought you to where you are today, and maybe a little bit about what you're endeavoring in on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Bruce. It's really exciting to be here. I'm going to take you back to a day in 2015. I grew up in Baltimore, and my father still lived in Baltimore. And at this point in time, we had moved him from his apartment into assisted living. As often as possible, I would like, to keep my loved ones, if they have dementia, close to home, but it just wasn't possible in my father's circumstances. So I drove from the first year I flew, the second year I took the train. So in this particular case, I was taking the train. The third year I drove once a month up to Baltimore from Atlanta, Georgia, to visit with my dad for 4 or 5 days. And much of my job was remote at the time. So I had that flexibility, which was just beautiful and providential. The year that I took the train, I would leave Atlanta at the Atlanta station, the Southern Crescent, at 8 p.m. And I would arrive in Baltimore at approximately 11 the following morning. The longer you stay on the train, if it's a long distance train ride, the less you want to use the restroom. So by the time I got off the train and to the rental car, I'm full up and really need to be relieving myself. Anyway, I drive from the rental place to my father's assisted living facility, and I'm in the parking lot with this full bladder, but I'm not running out of the car and into the lobby to use the ladies' room yet. I'm praying, God, please help me know what to say. Please help me know what to do. Please help me know how to not screw this one up the way I did last time. And as I was walking from my car, then into the lobby, I said to God, one day I will help other dementia caregivers figure this stuff out, because this is hard and there's no manual. And after my father passed away in 2017, and I was sorting through my grief, I decided to leave my 30-year career in marketing and advertising and turn my talents in communication towards learning how to help other people navigate this road, and then doing so. And fast forward to today and my work at Beyond Dementia Coalition, which is incredibly rewarding. To work for a nonprofit organization whose mission is to reduce stigma and create education and community awareness opportunities so that everyone, not just dementia caregivers, but everyone can learn a little something about dementia in an effort to be able to support someone living with the disease as they seek to succeed in simple activities of daily living.
Fantastic, Glad. Thanks. I have a question, first of all, and it has to do with the role of the caregiver. But you said something that intrigues me and causes me some consternation as I think about caregivers. You talked about the flexibility to travel, right? You had I guess maybe it's the luxury to be able to travel,
Yes.
yeah, from Atlanta to Baltimore. It's not the same for every caregiver, though, is it? And I'm wondering how that affects a caregiver in their role, the newly discovered role of caregiver, and how that might play out. Is that a discussion we should have right now, or do you want to save that for later?
I think we can have that discussion now. I'm glad you brought that up. And that's one of the things, behind the impetus to do this is you used the word privileged. I was privileged to be able to ride the train, to be able to do work while riding the train, to be able to not be tied to my office, to be able to actually cross state lines. So many caregivers, for whatever circumstances, cannot travel to see their loved one with dementia, whether it's across town or across the county or across the state or across several states. And the anxiety that caregivers experience when they can't be with their loved one as often as they would like, not only to assuage their own guilt for not doing more, because caregivers all feel guilt that they're not doing enough, as well as, fear that they're not doing it right. Um, but also to make sure that their loved one is, however they're getting care, that it's care that they deserve.
Yeah. And you use the word guilt. That's a common theme that I hear. And guilt can last a long time, right? Guilt doesn't necessarily mean in the moment, but guilt can be something that lasts beyond the life of the loved one and stays with the caregiver to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so common in our human experience that when someone dies, taking dementia out of this for a moment, that when someone dies, uh, in addition to celebrating their life and conjuring the fond memories, it's so common that we have things that we wish we would have done differently. You mentioned the International End of Life Doula Association. They have an acronym that they use in describing the grief that a caregiver or a loved one, or in this case, in the case of Anilda, a person preparing to die, regrets, unfinished business, guilt, and shame. And they've since changed the moniker, and they approach that topic differently. But the reason why it's even in the curriculum for the International End of Life Doula Association is because that's such a common human experience, the guilt. And when you add dementia into the picture, and we can talk, about how dementia complicates relationships because it complicates communication. When you have dementia in the picture, then that's just a rife opportunity for guilt, because it becomes harder to communicate with the person living with dementia. And so that creates problems that might also downstream create regret, but it also creates problems in saying goodbye to the person with dementia.
So saying goodbye, but so I'm hearing guilt and how that plays out. What about bereavement, and the recognition of what you're experiencing as a bereaved? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's a valid question. Tell me if it's a valid question first.
It is, but can we go back for a minute?
Yeah, yeah.
When I was saying, and it's getting at this, but kind of coming in from a different door, the saying goodbye to the person, and complications with communication because of the disease makes it difficult to say goodbye to the person. In the caregiving role, in the dyad, and this is not new information right here, the caregiver is losing the person living with dementia, losing who they were. The person is still in front of them, but they're losing who that person was. And there is a grief associated with that loss that needs to be recognized. And it is often not recognized. And that's this invisible bereavement piece. What do we do with that? how does the caregiver role change? What are the strategies in order to cope with saying goodbye to someone while you're still cooking them dinner and planning the meal menu for the entire week? How do we cope with that? And how do we view ourselves and judge ourselves and feel about ourselves as we willfully change a dynamic or accept a changing dynamic in order to get through the day? Specifically, I'm talking about detachment and its own contributions, our guilt around. I look at my mother as different from the mother who raised me and different from the woman I knew when we were both adults. And I have to look at her differently, and that's a detachment. And at this point in her progression, in order to succeed in the caregiving role, I find it's most productive for me to view my mother as a client rather than a relative,
Hmm.
because I would never be rude to a client. I would never give a short answer to a client. I would never not consider the needs of a client. Whereas with a loved one, and we all do this, we take liberties because of the deep and long lasting relationship that we've had and we trust.
Flip.
And I've rambled a
No, no,
long
no, no.
time.
No, no, no. This is good. Flip the script though for me. Flip the script. Now we're talking about you as the caregiver, and I'm not saying you specifically. I'm talking about our audience as well, for the caregivers out there that maybe recently received a diagnosis along with their loved one of mild cognitive impairment, and they find themselves in the role of caregiver. At least that's what we call them, right?
Mhm.
But studies I've seen, and these are studies and also just experience and anecdotal evidence, is that there's a real need to really reconceptualize themselves in the context of their loved one's new diagnosis. So can you describe that kind of that nexus, that segue between I've lived my life, I have an identity, and I have a future in terms of aspirations, but what happens to me in terms of my role? How do I reconceptualize myself? And am I a different person now? Now I'm rambling, but you've shared kind of your perspective in terms of tools and mechanisms to deal with the nature of the disease. But what about yourself?
Speaking personally, which I'll have to start with, speaking personally, I can do this role because I am honoring the way that my mother nurtured me growing up. I am postponing aspirations of my life for a time, an undefined period of time, in order to do this. I am doing this because I want to be proud of the opportunities that I was able to give my mother at the end of life when she needed nurturing. As for other people, I think that many are like me, and regardless of the dynamics of the relationship they had with the person that they are caring for. But I think that for those that I talk to, and this is largely people that are seeking help in their caregiving role, which is not the entire population, whether through education or through community awareness programs or through support groups or other means. So it's a subset of the population. But what I see is the people that do indeed want to play a positive role in their loved one's experience. They want to help to foster the well-being of their loved one with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to look back later at how they participated in their loved one's journey and like the person that they saw in themselves, like the person that they see in themselves as a caregiver, to not have regrets. So some of it is for the loved one with dementia, and some of it is for the self.
Mm-hmm.
I would add that, Abraham Maslow, different social scientists feel differently about his concept of the pyramid, the universal human needs. Feeling safe, having bodily needs met, but also feeling valued and feeling as if one belongs and feeling that as if one has purpose. And in my trainings, I talk about these things, telling caregivers that people with dementia don't lose these needs in age. We don't lose them as we age, and we don't lose them if we have cognitive impairment. But caregivers also need these. They also need to feel valued and as if they belong and as if they have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so I think the caregiving role and people attempting to be the best caregiver that they can be in the moment, and that's not always the same quality caregiver. But I think part of that is because they understand and want for, through empathy, their loved one to feel valued and as if they belong and have purpose. And they themselves also need, by virtue of being humans, to feel purpose. And I think that because there's so much in dementia that we can't control, that caregivers have an inclination, many caregivers have an inclination to take agency and have control over those elements that they can. And so providing for their loved one is a way to take control of a disease that has ultimate control, to take control that one can.
Thank you for that, Cloud. I appreciate it. I'd like to just take a step back. We talked about guilt, right? We talked about bereavement to some extent, but there's also what I understand is, and what we've all experienced, I think, denial at some point in time.
If someone is noticing changes, then the first conversation should be with a loved one or with a primary doctor. And the primary doctor and the loved ones may, nothing's wrong with you. They may brush it off. But if you have concerns, and this is the subject for a different podcast, but if you have concerns, then don't brush it off. Don't allow that to happen. There are numerous benefits to pursuing with curiosity what's happening upstairs, so to speak. And there are lots of other things that could be causing the changes that you might be noticing. So another podcast, but very important to deny denial.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing cognitive changes.
And keyword you used that informs the way we behave really is curiosity, right?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about curiosity, but maybe that's another episode as well.
That is definitely another episode. Cloud, I want to thank you so much. We at Beyond Dementia Coalition talk about seeing the person beyond the disease, but today I think we've delved into seeing the caregiver beyond the role, really, if you will, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you for this time. It's been fun to talk with you.
Take care.
You too.
Beyond Dementia Coalition is on a quest to close the dementia preparedness gap we face. To get there, we sure could use your support as a donor or a volunteer. To get involved, please go to beyonddementiacoalition.org. All donations are tax deductible, and be sure to subscribe to our mailing list to receive our monthly newsletter in your inbox, where we'll share new podcasts, fact sheets, webinars, blogs, and other dementia-related content. This is Dementia Air. See the person beyond the disease.